Good morning, welcome to Headline Focus here live on Core Politics with me, Rob Double. It is Tuesday, the 29th of May 2018. Let's have a look at what's making the political news today. Now, it's recess this week, so there isn't much happening relatively on the political scene, or certainly from Westminster. There is still, however, some key stories coming through. The main one comes through from Ireland, and particularly over abortion law. Now, Theresa May, the Prime Minister's Feminism, has been challenged this week on the abortion law specifically relating to Northern Ireland. Now, she's under a lot of pressure to challenge the Northern Ireland's very strict abortion laws, which are currently in place. This is particularly in the context of last week's vote in the Republic of Ireland to end the ban on abortion. And that was a real historic moment for the Republic of Ireland. And what it's done is it's created the momentum to question the abortion laws in the Republic of Ireland. Currently, Northern Ireland only allows abortion when there is serious risk of the life of the mother, or a permanent risk to her health or physical health. Now, the DUP vehemently oppose any kind of change, any kind of reform to the abortion laws at all. Now, in the context of Westminster politics, that creates a serious problem for the Prime Minister, in that nothing that she can do in terms of making bold decisions, or rather controversial decisions in the context of Northern Ireland, are going to be supported by the DUP, and therefore going to threaten her majority in Westminster, particularly in terms of Brexit legislation which is coming through, which she's reliant upon the DUP to ensure that she gets through the House of Commons. But in terms of what the Labour Party are doing, they're applying a lot of pressure, and you've seen this over the past few days on Theresa May, with Shami Chakrabarti saying that the Prime Minister, as a self-identifying feminist, needed to legislate without further delay in terms of Northern Ireland. Now, she didn't mention the Prime Minister explicitly in her article that she wrote, but I think she pretty much indicated where she was heading in terms of the direction of what she was saying. Labour MP Stella Creasy is also coordinating the backbench campaign to force the issue into Parliament, where it's in Parliament. It might therefore be really forcing the Prime Minister's hand in terms of making the change. But this is something in recess, in particular, where there's not much else particularly on in terms of politics. We'll be continuing, no doubt, to make the news over the next few days, so worth being aware of. Next up, the Treasury versus the Bank of England. There's a big Brexit clash brewing in the city, particularly between the two institutions. Now, the Treasury and Bank of England apparently are at loggerheads over the future of the City of London's regulation after Brexit. Now, in terms of regulation, the key thing you need to know in terms of words is the idea of being a rule taker. Now, the split is that the Bank of England oppose any kind of compromise in terms of a Brexit deal over regulation, particularly financial regulation, that would leave it a rule taker and subject simply to the rules of the European Union and the European financial regulations. This Bank of England official in the FT quoted as saying, "The fear is that the Treasury is going to give it all away," with Mark Carney, who's of course the governor of the Bank of England, saying, "We do not want to be a rule taker as an authority." He said that last year at some point. Now, Philip Hammond, however, this is where the confusion and rather the tension has come, as the Chancellor has said that he wants to keep Britain close to the EU rulebook, and by doing that, by keeping that closeness, it will ensure maximum access for the city and city institutions to the European markets, because if you're close to regulations, therefore you'll be able to ensure there's a smooth and rather close amount of free trade or trading going on between the European bloc and the City of London. The argument, however, why this has come out into the forefront now is because of the increasing fear that the European Union reportedly will completely reject the idea which the UK and the UK government and the city has put forward regarding mutual recognition, which is where the European Union and the City of London agree to mutually recognise each other's regulations as trying to achieve fundamental goals. So wanting to achieve fair market access, for example, there might be different methods of achieving that goal, which the Bank of England or the City of London will do differently to the European Union, but both of them acknowledge that they're both doing the same thing. They'll recognise each other's regulations hand in hand. That apparently has been rejected by Michel Barnier, the Brexit negotiator, which leaves the option of where else the negotiations and the deal can be made in a big question mark, and this is where the tension has arisen, reportedly. Now, we won't know much about this until, I suppose, in the next few months, but certainly it's something to keep an eye on if you're following Brexit, particularly in terms of financial services. Finally, one more. Speaking of the City of London, the government is tipped, or rather reportedly been tipped, to sell off some of its 70.5% shares in the Royal Bank of Scotland, RBS, even though the price is down by about 40% of when they were purchased back in 2008. Reports suggest it could be a sell-off of around 10% of the government's share of that 70.5%. Now, the government would remain as a majority shareholder in the company, but it raise about £3 billion, but the key thing is that it will be operating at a loss. That sale will be operating at a loss comparison to what RBS shares were bought at the time. John McDonnell, the Shadow Chancellor, and it says the announcement beggars belief and has called for the sell-off to be abandoned. The government was, of course, forced to bail out RBS following the financial crisis in 2008 with a £45 billion financial rescue package. So that'll be something, again, when in recess, might be ticking along as the announcement's made. The Treasury have been approached for comment, haven't released a comment yet, and neither have RBS. So this is not yet absolutely confirmed, but the reports coming through indicate that it is likely sometime in the very near future. There'll be no doubt some news lines on that in the whole context of nationalisation and financial regulation and financial ownership at the time. That's pretty much it for today, and indeed, really, for the next few days as it's recess. We'll be coming back to you on Thursday with an update, but as it's recess, there's not much of a daily to and fro from Westminster at the moment. But from me and all the team here at Core London, have a fantastic next few days. See you on Thursday around about 9 o'clock.